So, when did counseling stop being about problem solving? Well, not anymore. Introducing solution-focused counseling with the unlicensed counselor. And now, here's your host, Steve Moak.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of The Unlicensed Counselor. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor. And as always, so grateful to be here on a beautiful, dare I say, perfect, sunny Scottsdale, Arizona day. I got a little extra pep in my step today, Robin. It is a good week. I'm not going to take a victory lap on anything political, but we are going to talk a little political, but not in the sense that every other show and station is really talking about. You know, what we do here at the Unlicensed Counselor is talk about mental health, behavioral health, topics, kind of give you some, take-home kind of advice that you can put into play today. So, after all the political stuff, and it's been a lot, and it's been a lot. And I'm not here to say kumbaya or anything like that, but what I am interested in talking about today is, okay, some people's candidate won, some people's candidate lost. You know what? We're friends with people on both sides. I want to still be friends with people who voted for the person, even though, that I didn't vote for. So how can we maintain some of these friendships when they have different views, different beliefs, especially around politics? And you know what? We're getting ready to go into Thanksgiving, too. That means we got friends and family that are coming together. Let me give you some ideas on how exactly we can maybe come together a little bit and still be friends, family members, have relationships, be positive with people, even though they may have different beliefs than yours. So I think it's appropriately timed. And again, we're walking into Thanksgiving. You're going to have friends and family getting together. Let's see if we can avoid some of those landmines to keep from blowing up as you're sitting there having a great piece of pumpkin pie. So fun stuff, interesting. Boy, I am just glad to have at least the election part over with. Now let's get back. There's a lot of work to do on this country. But before we do that, I want to say thank you to our friends, our sponsors over at Buzzbin Media. Look, this is a super cool, easy service for you homeowners to sign up for. What it is they pay you to send decals to put onto your trash and recycling bin. You get $10 a month for doing what you already do, rolling your trash out to your street. Go to Buzzbin Media. That's BUZ1Z binmedia.com. Sign up with a new resident enrollment. They're going to be rolling out in a city near you. It's truly that simple. The next thing I always like to talk about is the youth drug abuse prevention work that I do at the StopStartsHere.org. Again, we now are Emmy-nominated content that we're putting out for youth drug abuse prevention. Give us a follow at Hard Stop Official. Parents, go and download the Parents Prevention Playbook. This is a guide on how to prevent your son or daughter from ever starting to use drugs. I mean, it is good stuff. I co-wrote it myself with a couple individuals as well, too. So download that. Cost you nothing. Go directly to the website at thestopstartshere.org. And again, I always like to plug me, the Unlicensed Counselor. Our YouTube channel starting to pick up a little steam. As much steam as we can pick up, at least, but we're getting some new subscribers every day, so grateful about that. Go find us on YouTube. We put all clips of the show on there as well. If you can't find 30 minutes in your day, go and find some clips in the shorts. You can find us on Instagram, on Facebook, all the usual places. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you find finer podcasts as well, too. So, look, we made it through the week, right? We made it through the week. We made it through the election. The country is still in one piece. President Trump won. Whether you like it or not, he's now going to be the president of the country. Whether you like him or not doesn't really matter. But I have friends who voted for Kamala Harris. Not a problem. I don't look at them any differently, even though we disagree on kind of who we voted for. I don't want that to impact our friendship, right? So some people, this stuff runs deep. Deeper than it ever has. Again, we used to not even tell people who we voted for before, and now we're losing friendships and marriages over it. Let's not have that be the case. Let's talk about, I got 10 ways that I outline here on how you can still maintain friendships with people, even though you don't agree with necessarily the beliefs or who they voted for. Number one, let's focus on shared values. Shared interests. Let's start looking for the things that we do share in common and start focusing on those and not on, Orange Man bad or Kamala bad or whatever. let's see if, you could say something like, we may see things differently on this election, but let's talk about something that we do have in common. Maybe it's hiking, maybe it's sports, maybe it's athletic, maybe it's a team that you root for. Try and find the ground that you think you have something in common for, and let's focus on talking about those things. Again, look, we got a big turkey dinner coming up here in a few weeks. You're going to have friends and family. Let's not make that thing wildly uncomfortable for everybody while you're sitting there. Let's shift the conversation to some things that we have in common instead of sticking on the things that we know could be hot button issues as well, too. Now, here's another little nugget for you as well. Ask genuine questions to kind of understand their positions. Don't go into the conversation looking to debate, right? Like, don't come in, you already have your points chambered, you ask a question, or maybe it's a leading question so that you can put in your information and your nuggets. So let's try and avoid that style of really conversation, which is almost more like, could be more argumentative than anything. So, I'm curious. Here's an example. I'm curious to hear more about what you admire in that candidate. I think understanding each other's perspectives could help us grow. If you wanted to try and find some way to kind of understand a little bit more, I also think at this point in time, the election is now over. If you'd like to have these conversations, great, but also understand that maybe it's a little bit of time to start moving on as well, too. Instead of continuing to rehash the past and continuing to go backwards and find all the negative things and pick all those out, let's think about moving forward. But I think it's okay if you, and I would also suggest maybe doing this more of a one-on-one environment instead of maybe lobbing this out in front of a group. If you genuinely want to understand, I may pull someone aside, or maybe when it's just you and them and you're having a cup of coffee or a drink afterwards, be like, walk me through, like, what am I missing right now, why you feel this way? Those would be simple little ways to kind of start to bridge the gap to genuinely try and understand as well, too. Now, I think number 3 here is something that you may even want to have ahead of that big Thanksgiving meal that's coming up. And let's potentially set some boundaries around some sensitive topics, right? If we all know walking into this thing that 50% of the room went this way and 50% of the family went that way, let's maybe put a group text or email together out there and say, look, let's see if we can set some of those things aside for right now. If you know it's going to lead to tension or political discussions are going to fire people up, let's just say, let's put that off the table for right now. And maybe, again, in a one-on-one environment, if you want to have some of the discussions, it might be appropriate. But we're all sitting at dinner, and we want to be thankful, and we want to be with our family that we don't get to see all the time. Let's maybe let's clear that out ahead of time so you don't run into these things as well, too. I think it's important, and you can even phrase it like, look, I value our family time. I value our friendship so much more. Let's not let these political disagreements kind of get in the way when we're hanging out, right? This is family time. This is gratitude time. This is fun. This is laughter. This is put on the football game, eat too much, take a nap. Me, I'll get up and do the turkey trot. That's the way I like to get after it, and then go stuff myself with my family and then hang out with all the cousins. It's just, that's the stuff. I don't want to get all this other stuff in the way, right? Now, here's another little example, and I think it's easy, and I see a lot of people doing this on social media too that are Trump supporters, right? It's like kind of taking the victory lap. I get it. We've been called Nazis, fascists, misogynists, homophobes, we've been garbage, all the things you've heard a million times. Like, I understand kind of wanting to take a victory lap and gloat a little bit, but I would suggest let's practice a little empathy maybe instead of kind of doing that. Let's take the higher road, if you will. Let's maybe try and find a little common ground instead of kind of puffing the chest out that my side won or my team won. I mean, why fuel the fire a little bit more? I think we could say things like, hey, it sounds like we're both concerned about the future. We might have different ideas, but ultimately I want the best for all of us, for both of us, right? Let's have statements and conversations like that versus bashing the other person or, again, taking that victory lap, so quote unquote, just because your candidate won, right? Let's just think about little things like that as we head into these meals. And I'm trying to think, I don't know if anybody at my Thanksgiving tables necessarily kind of leans one way or the other. I think we might be fortunate that people have different views, but I don't think there's one that's kind of way extreme either way. So we're fortunate in that sense. I think another thing that you may want to think about is, show some respect by kind of actively listening if somebody is bringing up some of these things as well, too. If your friend shares their perspective on the election, don't interrupt or immediately share a counter argument to kind of try and jump in. You're not Ben Shapiro or Jordan Peterson or anything like that. Show them the respect of listening to their viewpoint, even if you disagree with it, right? Let them share and listen. Don't just listen with the idea of what you want to say already chambered in your head and your counterpoint is counterpoint. Listen, like tangibly listen and reflect back what you're hearing so that they feel that they heard you as well too. And maybe you'll gain some insight into why they're feeling that way or why they feel so strongly about this point or that point and different things like that. So listening actively is a skill, but try it. Listen and don't just come into the conversation ready to list out your point A, B, and C of why this policy, she said this. Try and hear what they're talking about. I almost made a little quip about something there, and I bit my tongue, Robin. See, I'm practicing what I'm preaching. I was going to make a word salad joke at Kamala's expense, but I held back. I am showing restraint. Maybe that'll be number 11 on my list here as well, to show some restraint. The next thing I did have on my list was agree to disagree, but gracefully, right? You're allowed to agree to disagree. That's totally nice. But don't do the agree to disagree, stomp off, fist slam, door close, slam, all that kind of thing. Agree to disagree, right? Respectfully, gracefully. You can acknowledge a difference without making it personal and make it clear that, look, it's okay. Hey, we just see things differently. That's okay. We don't see eye to eye on this, and that's all right. I appreciate hearing a different point of view. Use that sentence when you're out there in the world. And it doesn't just have to be Thanksgiving. It could be at the office place or something where all these types of conversations are going on. I would also suggest, I go through my LinkedIn, and I have a lot in the behavioral health world, which tends to be a little bit more left-leaning since I've owned a drug testing company. I'm obviously in this space, and the responses that I have seen are just exaggerated, extreme, and we've all seen some of these videos. And I think maybe just lessen some of your time on the social media and don't feel the need to kind of comment on everything and kind of take your shot at the other side just because they lost or maybe they're acting a little erratically, if we want to call it that. It's okay to just kind of zip the lip, move on, right? You don't have to comment on everything or be snarky and things like that. It's okay to just kind of move on, agree to disagree, move on quietly, silently, peacefully. Just keep on moving. Right. Next thing, I would try and avoid, when you're having conversations, I would try and avoid kind of labels and assumptions in some of these political kind of conversations as well too. So all supporters of this candidate think this way, right? Or all supporters of candidates are this thing. Like we've seen these huge swaths of people been labeled as, you've heard all the things that there is. Honestly, it's unfair. It's unfair. Not everybody in all of those groups certainly feel that way. And I think, given the voting turnout and how things went, the people have spoken that they're frustrated by being labeled and called all these things as well, too. And I think in our personal conversations, let's avoid those labels or assumptions as well, too, and just keeps a better dialogue going. I would say things like people's beliefs are complex. And I know we're both going to have unique kind of perspectives on these things. It's okay to just say things like that and not label, assume, and kind of just blanket statement all these types of things that are out there. And another little nugget, and this is one that I use in my day-to-day life too, is I'll throw a little humor into the situation from time to time as well too. If it's starting to get a little tense, I mean, we're not having to be Chris Rock here, but it's okay to diffuse the situation with a little lighthearted humor. Sometimes that can soften disagreements as long as it's kind of respectful and, again, not taking a shot at somebody else as a way too. I think it's, if things get tense, maybe just Google some type of dumb joke in there and have that kind of chambered in your pocket. So if it's getting a little tense and be like, okay, time out, let's take a break, go back to our, find something stupid and corny so that you can kind of mix it up and bring a little levity to the situation. Because you see how quickly people can escalate it, right? I mean, it can go from 0 to I hate you and, red face and choice words and all those types of things. Let's take a step back. Make sure to check your tone while you're kind of doing this, but I think it's okay to throw a little joke in here as well, too. And poke fun at yourself, poke fun at your own candidate or something as well, too. I mean, break it up a little bit. It doesn't have to be so serious, right? It doesn't have to be so serious. I think another thing that we always talk about here is being able to express some gratitude for the friendship specifically here, right? Be like, look, I value our friendship regardless of the political beliefs. I think that you and I have been friends forever, and I want to keep it that way, right? I want to keep that positive foundation for our friendship. It's important to me. I'm really grateful we're friends. Even if we see some things differently, I think that makes our friendship stronger. And if you can have kind of phrases or thoughts like this before you even go into some of these situations, you're going to be a little better equipped, a little better armed to be able to address these things pretty quickly and hopefully navigate some of these what could be choppy waters over the next few weeks as well too. I think the last point I had just on how to maintain these friendship is recognize and celebrate some of the differences. It's okay. What makes our country great is we've got different beliefs and people have different views, and we're allowed to debate them and we're allowed to challenge them, and you're allowed to have those kinds of thoughts and ideas that we don't all have to agree on. Look, I'm a Republican, but I don't have the same views as many other Republicans that are out there. I have my own ways of thinking and thoughts and things and values that are important to me. And it's certainly not all along the traditional, quote unquote, Republican kind of lines. I think appreciating that a diverse range of beliefs can broaden perspectives and help you grow. Right? I think that's important. I think it's very important. And I don't think we should be critical because you just have different beliefs of this. It's okay. Respect that. It's important that we all have. We don't want to live in a country where everybody thinks the same thing and has to believe in a certain way. That just sounds terrible to me. I love, having something chambered in your pocket like, hey, I love that we bring different perspectives to the table. It keeps things interesting, right? Those are little things that can help you navigate what could be a little dicey waters for the next few weeks. And I would also say, let's be sure we're showing a little grace to everybody that's out there, right? A little extra room. I know. Certainly the Republicans have been beat up and dragged through the mud and all these different types of things. And it's like, okay, the candidate won that you supported. Great. Well, let's kind of take the high road. Let's show a little grace. Understand that people are going to be frustrated, mad, disappointed, angry, upset, all those types of things. I don't understand the thing of filming yourself being that upset unless you're just going for attention and the views and the likes. I mean, I guess it's entertaining, but it seems weird that your first instinct is to go and grab a microphone and a camera, but I guess that's just the world in which we live in. Just show a little extra grace, a little extra empathy, go slow, understand that people are going to be sensitive for a little while. That'll change, that'll change, and then we'll kind of get back to, running things a little more normally, but give it a little extra grace. Okay, now, those are all situations where you're still friends with people, your family, you love them, you want to keep it that way. Unfortunately, there will be some times when it just doesn't work. And even though maybe you've been friends or they are your family, some people's beliefs are so hardened, or maybe they have changed, or their values are such in a way that because you believe this one way or thing, it may not work anymore, right? So I'm going to say that's a last resort type of thing, but let me hit a couple points in case it is really to that point where you've tried all the things that we've discussed. You want to maintain that friendship. You've expressed that. You've been positive. You showed grace and empathy and respect and all the things that we just talked about, but that's not working. And unfortunately, it can happen. And the number one thing I would say is let's make sure we reevaluate that relationship's importance, right? Because if it is a constant source of pain, frustration, headache, it's impacting your mental health, behavioral health, like you're just kind of dreading, I gotta go, I'm going to get beat up by this person, or they're going to just talk about it, they're going to spew all this kind of whatever. Think about if that's a relationship that you necessarily need to maintain, right? It's okay to think about how much the friendship means to you and whether it's adding value to your life. Sometimes it's okay to recognize this friendship may not be right. Now, here's the other cool point. It may not be right for now, right? Maybe it's just not right for now. Maybe it just needs a little bit of time to breathe, and then you could revisit that, right? But you may need to step back and say, is this friendship, does the good outweigh the bad on their different views? If it balance kind of tips too far into stress, maybe we just need to pause. Maybe you don't have to be dramatic about it, but maybe you just need a little time away, right? And that kind of leads to number 2 is, take a little break from your friend if you need to. And hopefully that can regain some perspective as well, too. And maybe they can do that as well, too. But I wouldn't say I don't know. I have mixed feelings on if I would actually tell them to be like, look, I'm taking a break. I think I probably would. I'm going to take a little break for a little bit. Let's talk in a month or so. And let's not lose sight of what matters is our friendship, and let's reconnect in a few weeks. I think that's what I would do. Right? I think that's how I would do it. It's kind of like a timeout, right? A little bit of a timeout. The other thing is, maybe you could do some kind of neutral activities together. Keep the interactions light, center around shared activities. Maybe it's, you're doing sports and you're kind of focused on things, so you're not really having all the time to think about these. If you're out there playing basketball or something like that. Maybe it could be going to see a movie where there's not a lot of talking, or working out, so it doesn't kind of allow for the opportunity to get into these controversial discussions as well, too. Another thought I had is you could potentially seek some mediation from like a mutual friend. If you got like a third party, if you got a Switzerland in your friend group, right? You could reach out to them and be like, look, this friendship's important to me, but we are way off right now. We can't find the common ground. Can you help us? Can you maybe help bring us back together a little bit? Maybe you can kind of help keep the conversation light and let both parties be heard, and see if that can bring about a little more shared values, interests, and keep that friendship going. I would also say you got to make sure that you're keeping clear boundaries with this person as well, too. If you want to keep it going, agree on topics to avoid ahead of time, and be very clear and direct about that, either in person or over text, and be like, look, I don't want to get in an argument. I do not. We've done this too many times. I'm borderline having to take a break. Can we just say that these things are off limits to talk about, and hold that, right? If it goes down that road, you got to hold that boundary. Be like, hey, this is what I talked about. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be a jerk, but I really don't want to go down this path with you. I hope you can respect that, right? And it's okay to step back respectfully. Not all friendships endure every phase of life. Sometimes friendships go away. Friendships have a season. Friendships have a cycle. Friendships have life. I mean, I've done this a couple times in my life where I've looked back and gone, oh man, I wonder what they're up to, right? And it was a great friendship for where I was at that point in time. And maybe, just maybe, at this point in time, this friendship has now run its course. It's had its season. And the cycle is done, and now maybe we're moving on. And it's okay to kind of step back. And I think it's okay to say, I think it might be best for both of us if we connect less often. I respect you. I don't want to damage anything. I don't want to leave on bad notes, but I think I'm going to take a step back for now, okay? And that's all right. You don't have to feel bad about that. You probably may feel a little bad for a little bit, but you're doing it for you. As long as you're doing it, kind of giving it thoughtfully and respectfully, and you're not just doing it out of spite or something like that, all right? I think the other thing to do is if it's not working, you got to find some new people. You got to find some new people with different shared, different values so that you can reconnect with them, right? Focus on some friendships that kind of more align with your values. Maybe your values have shifted and now you're just kind of finding out. Maybe all this stuff has kind of given you some insight into what your values really are. And now, well, shoot, I didn't really realize maybe I just need to shift my friend group a little bit, okay? You could find some people who have different beliefs and interests and things like you and kind of steer away from the people that maybe don't. And that's okay. That's okay to do, right? And the last thing I had on this, again, if it's not working out and you've now maybe broken off a friendship or a relationship or something like that, let's reflect on some of the personal growth that you can gain from that situation. Like, don't just let it go and be like, gone by, goodbye, good riddance, never going to happen again. Sometimes these conflict areas reveal where we can grow, right? So if you do kind of an autopsy on what that friendship is, why it went south and did, reflect on what that experience has taught you about communications, boundaries, resilience. Look into those things and learn from that. Use it as an opportunity to grow, right? You can journal about what you've learned. Hopefully that can prevent some future disagreements and maybe make it easier to handle situations or improve how you kind of communicate around different views. Ultimately, friendship should bring more joy than stress, right? That's what a friendship is. They're not going to be perfect, and sometimes you do need to be challenged and do have difficult conversations. But sometimes stepping back may also be the healthiest choice for you as well, too. Friendships naturally ebb and flow, and sometimes a pause or even a graceful exit may be what's best for you. I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that you listen to the first part of the podcast and kind of put some of those steps into play, because I think we should be able to maintain our friendships, our family, and have healthy communication around different viewpoints and beliefs. I think we can learn, right? But if it doesn't, listen to the second half of the podcast and you can start to figure out if that person is really, a necessity in your life. I want you to be happy and healthy, and maybe that one has just run its course. So, I wanted to take politics from a different angle. I care about communication. I care about people. I care about patterns, how we can change those, how we can improve those. If you are struggling with this right now, it is a hot button topic. Send this to your friends, send this to your family. See if you can keep kind of the healthy communication going. Listen to some of these tips, share this episode with them, and let's hope we can bring people together instead of keep driving them apart. My name is Steve Moak. I am the Unlicensed Counselor. Till next time, thank you very much.